Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. I'm John Ledyard from PewterReport.com. With me is JC Allen, also from PewterReport.com, on a wonderful day, a terrific day, because it's NFL owners meetings today. So we are going to get to hear from General Manager Jason Licht, Head Coach Bruce Arians, and it's going to be awesome. And it's going to be later this evening, actually, that we'll hear from Jason at least, and then we'll hear from Bruce tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:30 a.m. Scott and Matt are both there out at the owners meetings in Palm Beach, I believe, is where it is, right, JC? Is that correct?
Palm Beach, yeah.
Palm Beach.
Right in that beautiful, sunny South Florida weather.
That's right. They're enjoying themselves.
Here, but I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know, it's fine here. I'm quite happy where I am too, but no, they're out there covering those, and they'll be speaking to Jason later this evening around 5:30 or so. Then we'll have some content from that, I'm sure, up on the site later this evening, and so make sure you stay tuned for that over at PewterReport.com. And then obviously tomorrow morning when Bruce speaks, I'd imagine that'll be probably the most noteworthy session. Knowing Bruce, and when it's been a while, he usually tends to drop some nuggets, so we should have some content from that as well tomorrow morning. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet, JC. Not a whole lot going on. Ronald Jones is gone. We'll talk about that today. Zach Triner is back. We'll talk about that as well. Big splash. And we'll really look at the state of the whole NFC. What's going on with this freaking conference? There's a lot happening. And so we'll take a look at all of it. It should be a good time on the pod today.
A lot happening now, but most likely not in the season. I mean, you want to talk about parity. The NFC is just ripe for some team that struggled last year to make their move, because wow, the moves that just came out of it. It seems like it was a mass exodus once Tom Brady returned. Everyone's like, oh, let's get out of here. But yeah, there's still some Bucs nuggets to pass out around there, and owners meetings we should begin. Also get Joel Glazer today too. I expect.
Oh, that's right.
To field a couple of those. If Brady didn't come back, Deshaun Watson, was he in would you guys sign off on that? So we'll get that, and the fans can debate that more, the 1 year of Brady or 10 of Deshaun. So a lot of good nuggets coming out between Jason, Joel, and Bruce, and obviously they're not done. I mean, they're showing they're going to keep signing players, and maybe Sue comes back next.
Yeah, and we're going to go over that free agent tracker and kind of just see where the Bucs are at in terms of re-signings and who's left out there, who they've lost, who they've brought back, and kind of where the whole thing is at. But first, got to mention that today's podcast is all the Pewter Report podcasts is brought to you by our title sponsors over at Celsius Energy Drinks. Celsius powers active lives every day with essential functional energy. These are the best tasting energy drinks out there. No question about it, folks. There's no sugar in these. Gives you essential energy, accelerates your metabolism, burns body fat. I am drinking the peach vibe as we speak and enjoying it greatly. Truly one of the best flavors out there, but there also are a bunch of flavors. There's new flavors on the way, and there's a bunch of flavors that are out there. You can see some of them on the screen: Fuji apple pear, strawberry guava, wild berry, tropical vibe, watermelon, orange, orangesicle, blueberry pomegranate, strawberry dragon fruit. You can check all these out. I know you're wondering. So you can check all of them out by going over to Celsius.com. Use the store locator to find out where they sell them near you. Or you can go to PewterReport.com, click on those banner ads on the site, do the Amazon subscribe and save option, and get them shipping to you regularly from our friends over at Celsius as well. So great stuff as always. Celsius, keeping it real, keeping it fresh, and helping us stay energized for the Pewter Report podcast that we do. And we welcome into the show, Casey. Kay Huddy, what's going on? I didn't know if you were going to show up. I know that you're big time now. You've been on doing lightning hosting stuff, and you've been WDAE in studio. I just wasn't sure if you had time for us today.
I will always have time for the squad that counts the most out of everybody, which is the PR squad. What's up, guys?
That's what we like to hear. No, not too much is up. We were just mentioning that there wasn't much change over the weekend with the Bucs in terms of the free agency status of a lot of their players. And I'll take everybody through the tracker here so we can see kind of where things are. But Ronald Jones moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Bucs nuts, 4 free agents. And any parting thoughts for Rojo, Casey?
You know, at this point, JC made me feel like I said enough about Rojo. So I'm just going to say best of luck. Hopefully he'll be a better fit over there, which he might actually be.
Yeah, he might be. I don't see it, though, JC, right off the top of my head. Like, Kansas City throws the ball a ton. Now, Kansas City could be turning over a new leaf. They traded Tyreek Hill after all. The wide receiver room right now is pretty middling group. Travis Kelce's turning 33. it's possible that they're trying to go another direction, especially with the run blockers they have on that offensive line. And if so, Rojo's, he's a good pure rusher. It's just the fact of the matter is that just how incapable he is on passing downs really diminishes his value a good bit.
Yeah, he's a runner. That's about it. He's not gonna. They got Clyde Edwards-Helaire there as well too. I don't know. Maybe they want to use him as like the first down back and then bring in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Who knows what they want to do? I mean, he's a short guy, 180 pounds, soaking wet, so he's not going to give much power. But I just, I don't even say anything about my thoughts. I'll just give you. See you later, Rojo. I already told you. We're getting rid of everybody.
Vicious.
Love
this. He listens to this.
And I'm not upset about that. Whatever. I didn't like the money. But
somebody had a great comment though. Okay, maybe not great. I'm being not so nice. But somebody put, hopefully he didn't fumble the pen when he signed the contract.
It's funny because statistically he doesn't actually have a huge fumbling issue, but because we've seen the fumbles happen in key moments and really kind of inexplicable fumbles at times, it has resonated with us for sure a little bit more, which honestly is kind of understandable. Yes, K Huddy is here. Common sense, they can relax now. K Huddy is here.
I'm with the fam. This is the fam, even though I'm constantly juggling.
There we go. You're right. Here's a good question here from Mark. We always appreciate Mark contributing, donating to the site as well, helping us out. Is it just me, or with his backdrop and black shirt, does JC look like the head on the Wizard of Oz?
Click your heels 3 times and Brady will be back for next year as well.
Oh,
I like it.
I'm sure everybody will take that bet.
Ed Keeley, Rojo couldn't pick up a strong side blitz to save his life, or a weak side blitz, or any kind of blitz that you can think of.
Hence why I said he's 180 pounds. What? No,
that's right. I mean, Casey, by the way, if anybody didn't hear, absolutely maligned Rojo, called him, basically said he was the smallest running back in the league, even though he's gained like 10 pounds.
180 soaking wet.
Yeah. Absolutely disrespected him on WDAE this week. It was kind of funny because you weren't meaning to be that mean, but they like kind of put you in that corner where you like,
I tried to just have like one sentence. And then, the follow-up question was like really poking at me to be like, so how do you really feel? And then
how much longer is this interview?
Right? Like,
that's right.
Guys, don't do this to me. And they did it. So I went for it. I thought it was Friday the whole time too. So I was really going for it.
Brian says Keyshawn Vaughn will be the next punching bag for this upcoming season if he screws up a lot. Vaughn low key right now has a pretty big load on his shoulders if not a lot changes, if they draft a rookie or something like that and they don't sign anyone else. I do think they will sign someone else eventually here. There are pretty minimal contracts being given out to running backs right now, and there's still a number of Darrell Williams is still out there.
David Johnson's going to be the guy. Come on, John. We both know this in our hearts of hearts.
I'm not expecting that one.
Bruce is not going to not sign David Johnson now that he's available. He did it with Shady. He did it with Le'Veon. Different circumstance with Le'Veon, but he's gonna try to get David Johnson a ring, and he's gonna bring him in. I can't.
Wait, what? Did you think there was a personal connection to Shady and Le'Veon with Bruce?
No, just like veteran backs. He always likes to have one of those veteran backs on the to help bring up and keep.
We learned a lesson this season about the vets that we just keep
But it's not David Johnson. I mean, that's.
I mean, if there was an injury in season, I might agree with you on David Johnson. If there was an injury in season and they had to bring somebody in, because then it's all about guys that know the system. But not at this point. I would be shocked if that happens. They're going
to draft a rookie and they're going to bring David Johnson to help mentor the rookie and Vaughn while letting him handle the load.
It's interesting about Vaughn. We have the dichotomy of he is really good in pass protection last year, and he got a decent amount of reps at it. So it actually gave me encouragement that he could improve in that one way. But he's been so bad as a pass receiver. It's kind of like the Sony Michel thing, right? Like, how much do we trust him on passing downs? And how much they do think he can be a receiver will be indicated. If they sign like a Giovanni Bernard re-sign or Jerick McKinnon or Darrell Williams, then you're like, okay, they don't probably totally trust him as a receiving back. But on the other hand, if they decide to kind of stay away from those guys, then I think it will be a pretty good indication that, we're ready to ride with Keyshawn Vaughn as like a true number 2 here and go back to kind of how things were in 2020, more so with the splitting. But obviously Leonard will still shoulder the load, but they'll be more ready to trust Vaughn with 2 or 3 drives per game, I think. So it's something to watch for moving forward. Okay. This is something Scott is just can't get off of. Bucs are going to draft Dameon Pierce. Nate says Scott agrees with you. He alone will lead the Bucs to another Super Bowl ring. Today's Florida's pro day. The Bucs were there at the Gators pro day today. John Spytek was there.
And the head scouts as well.
Yeah, the head scouts as well was there. So they had a presence there. Obviously, Jason and Bruce wouldn't be there because Bruce doesn't really go to pro days, but Jason is at the NFL owners meetings, so they couldn't be there. But Dameon Pierce, one of the guys they could be looking at. Kaiir Elam, the cornerback from Florida as well. They were watching the D-line. Zach Carter from Florida could be a later round option for them if they're looking for an interior pass rush type of player, contributor kind of on the D-line. That could be an option for them as well. So JC, a couple guys at Florida maybe that the Bucs are looking at. It could be another Gator connection. There's been plenty of them in the draft before, so we always keep our eye on it.
Oh, yeah, they love the Florida guys. It's because they're local, right? You can bring them in on visits. It doesn't count for your 30. It's Gainesville and Tallahassee aren't too far up the street, so you can go look at, Florida or FSU, and, they could use both of those guys that you just mentioned. Dameon Pierce would be a great addition to the run back room. And if you look at it, I mean, he might not see the field as much this year, but you'd have two cornerbacks in contract years and, preparing for the future and drafting cornerbacks is something that Jason Light loves to do. So if they're standing there at 27 and all their guys are off the board and, at least they'll have their due diligence. They'll have gone and watched Kaiir Elam and, he would be a good fit, I think, too.
Casey, I'm going to have you sound off on some of the re-signings. We're going to go through. We're talking about potential acquisitions through the draft for the Bucs there. We're talking about the Gators, but we are talking about a Gator also that is going to be a former Gator has been added to the Bucs roster via free agency. We'll touch on him in a second on the offensive line. But first, I want to just go through the re-signings and get both of your thoughts really quick on the re-signings and who's potentially still out there to re-sign. So the state of this free agent class for the Bucs. Chris Godwin back 3 years, $60 million. Carlton Davis back 3 years, $45 million. Ryan Jensen back 3 years, $39 million. When we set out at the beginning of the offseason, before we knew Brady was retiring even, we wavered a little bit after that because we weren't sure what kind of approach this team was going to take with the guys on their roster. But it seemed clear that those were the three free agents you could not afford to lose without significant drop-off. Now with the Super Bowl window still open, they go and they bring back all three of them. So obviously some excellent stuff there. But they weren't done either. Will Golston, 1 year, $4.5 million deal. He's back as well. Leonard Fournette, 3 years, $21 million. That one looked in doubt for a while, and we could talk maybe about that one a little bit more, but that one looked like it was in doubt for a few days, and then he just didn't sign anywhere else. I think he had the opportunities. He really, wanted to come back, and not that he took less to come back. I don't know if that's the case. I think that was pretty much his going rate. But I think that, he definitely ended up holding out, and the Bucs ended up saying, you know what, there's not a lot of running backs out there. Let's do this thing. 1 year, $1.4 million for Aaron Stinney. He'll compete at left guard. Josh Wells is back to compete for the swing tackle job. A 1 year, $1.12 million deal.
$800,000 guaranteed on that deal too. What are you doing, guaranteeing money to Josh Wells? What are you?
They've guaranteed money to Josh Wells before. He's a veteran in the NFL. $895K guaranteed is about the minimum, dude.
This is still pretty wild.
Almost $1 million though. Count towards dead cap money. I don't like.
That's a very standard deal. I feel like Rashad Perryman is back for another year as well. Well, he could be back for another year. We'll see how that one plays out in camp. Thoughts real quick. There's still some free agents out there. Obviously, Ndamukong Suh and Rob Gronkowski are the ones people watch closely. Mm-hmm. Widely expected that if they're going to come back, it'll be with the Bucs. Just a matter of timing. There's not really, I don't think, a lot of competition for their services right now. So I think it's just timing thing. And Gronk still trying to figure out if he wants to play, but it does sound like from his comments that we've seen recently that he is leaning that way. Jason Pierre-Paul has gotten interest from the Cowboys. I love his agency, by the way. They're trying to drum it up for him. They have first day of free agency. He's like, JPP is getting some interest out there in the market. I'm like, no, he isn't. This guy's one arm is hanging off this dude. He's missing fingers. His back's been broken before.
Still hurting. Yeah.
Body's been through hell.
Didn't he nix off-season surgery as well?
No, he had the surgery, but it's like a 6-month recovery for torn rotator cuff. So.
Okay, I don't know why for some reason, or maybe there was another surgery that was. It was
Wirfs. That's who you're thinking of, I think. Wirfs ended up not having surgery. Yeah. And for a while, it was speculated that he would. So JPP's still out there. Rojo to the Chiefs, obviously. OJ Howard to the Bills. Alex Kappa to the Bengals and Jordan Whitehead to the Jets have been the 4 losses so far, but still. Options like Blaine Gabbert still out there, Pierre Desir, Kevin Minter, Giovanni Bernard, Steve McClendon. Does he want to play another year? Pat O'Connor, a defensive lineman, special teamer, Andrew Adams, Curtis Riley, and they just re-signed Zach Triner today. I didn't mention him as well, and we expect Richard Sherman's going to hang it up. But thoughts, Casey, on this group so far and what they've done and which players, other than the Gronkowski and Sue, I think, assuming you want both of them back, is there anybody else here that you'd like to see that the Bucs re-sign?
I mean, honestly, there's no one that you name that's like, oh, I need this guy to come back for me. Because for the most part, the toss-up for me was seeing if they were going to bring back Whitehead versus Davis, and then Davis ended up winning that one out. So in terms of the most significant guys and that need to come back to the Bucs, or that you want to see come back in a Bucs jersey this coming season, I think they've done a great job of lining that up. I know that Kevin Minter has been a helpful step in here and there. Again, a guy that's not pretty consistent, but once you start getting to a 2, 3, 4 slot, you're not looking at consistent players. You're looking at people to just step in.
Special teams, yeah.
Exactly. But it's going to be my free agency mentality starting to shift as we get closer to the draft, just because in some of these positions, adding to the depth, it's almost just way better to go with the clean slate and get a younger guy to start mentoring in that spot. I thought if anything, they were maybe going to snag a couple other guys to help out in that interior, but you guys probably would know better than me. It's probably way better to start younger there and just start grooming out for the franchise. But looking at everything, I think it's time to start focusing on the defense. I think offense is lining up nicely. I don't know how much more time or money they're going to invest in Blaine Gabbert, but he's helpful in the sense to where, according to Scott, he's got a very clean record and he'd be a nice relief for Brady whenever he needs to come in. So no, none of those guys really stand out to me. And I think that Gronk and Sue are coming back.
Yeah. Okay. JC, what are your thoughts on the re-signing group so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously those are the guys that you needed to have back, that you had to have back, and you've done a great job with that. I think Will Golson was huge. Surprised he only got 1 year. You did take a little bit of a pay cut. I think Leonard Fournette, you look at the deal, you're like $7 million a year. Wow. And then you could probably get out of it after year 2. And then really looking back, you're going to kick yourself in for paying him an extra $1 million or $1.5 million more than what you wanted to. I don't think that's going to be the case. So it was a good signing. Ryan Jensen, same thing, 31 years old. You hope he doesn't break down. But once Brady came back, that was a done deal. You know, if Brady didn't come back, maybe you're looking somewhere else. So, I mean, with the re-signings, besides Josh Wells' guaranteed money, because I think Fred Johnson can beat him out, you know, I love it. I love what they've done so far. I think Pat O'Connor is a guy who should, be, coming up next. He looked really good last year until he got injured. And obviously he's just been such a mainstay on that special teams. I don't really think there's anyone out there, not including Sue and Gronkowski, that I think is a pressing need to re-sign. Obviously, I'd like to see them re-sign Andrew Adams, but he's already been told he's not coming back. Kevin Minter, for him, great special teams captain the last few years. He's clearly lost a step in coverage. And I don't know if him in coverage and him being that number 3 guy or first backup in is much worse than KJ Britt at this point. We'll see. I know John might disagree with me a little bit there.
No, I don't think either are very good. So
yeah. So I mean,
I speak highly of him, but I haven't seen anything.
Of KJ?
Yeah.
As far as Blaine Gabbert too, it's like, do you bring him back? And we went from before the, this last Sirius XM radio with interview with Jason Light and before Brady came back, we got Gabbert and we got Trask. We got Gabbert, we got Trask. We got Gabbert, we got Trask. Well, Gabbert was never signed. He was a free agent. Then all of a sudden, we're looking at Gabbert, and that's a possibility. Comes back and looking at other avenues. At some point, you got to see what Trask has, and if that's number 2, do you put him in a competition because Bruce isn't going to be able to help himself? If Gabbert's back, Gabbert's a number 2, and Trask is inactive on game days. This is what's going to happen. And at that point, and I've heard what you and Scott said. If you're Trask and you can't beat Gabbert out, well, that's a test. But at the same time, it's one of those double-edged swords. Do you bring back Gabbert, or do you just say, all right, the world is yours, and you better earn that number 2 spot, or else we're
yeah. It doesn't really matter a lot to me, to be honest with you, in terms of personal preference. Like, I don't really care what happens. If Brady goes down, they're screwed. So whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like
So optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, it's just be honest. Like, it's not.
I wouldn't put the hands of my team and to the hopes of a UF quarterback. So
savage.
No, in my book.
So there's a couple. There's new additions too to this roster that are really important. We've talked pretty at length about Russell Gage, Shaq Mason, Logan Ryan. We've discussed those guys, but over the weekend they added another offensive lineman. Fred Johnson was released from the Bengals. He had originally signed his tender, right?
Yeah,
and was brought back, and then they cut him. Like
after
the reports were like 5 minutes apart. I've never seen that.
It was like
right Fred Johnson is very confusing for a second.
It was right after they agreed to terms of Lale Collins. So they're like, yeah, we don't need you. See you later.
He like signed it, and then they were like, bye. So he got cut, and he's coming to the Bucs now. I like this signing. The more I looked into it, I got to watch a little bit of his tape. I talked to some Bengals people. He has not played all that well overall, but you have to remember this is one of the worst offensive line development teams in the league, has been for a while, clearly still were this past season. That offensive line was unwatchable. Lots of young guys that have not developed or grown or gotten better. So getting them now in an environment where pretty much every player has developed. It's been, even if they haven't become great, Aaron Stinney has gotten better. Nick Leverett has gotten better. Alex Kappa looked unplayable early in his career, has gotten better. Ryan Jensen from year 1 to year 2 in Tampa, light year difference. Tristan Wirfs coming out of college right to an all-pro level where there were questions about him in college. Look, people forget that and they want to be revisionist. Tristan Wirfs was not this unbelievably perfect player in college. There was a lot of people had him as the 4th tackle. Good, smart people who know what they're talking about had him as the 4th tackle in that class, and there was not he was like not this like ready-made all-star in the NFL or in college football. And then in the NFL, he gets there, boom, and he hits the ground running. Donovan Smith's development every single year of his career. Small school guys. So that gives me a lot of hope with Fred Johnson. If you come with the right mentality, the right work ethic, you're going to hear good things. Now, when I talked to people at Florida, they said they loved him at Florida, and they said that his work ethic was awesome. When I talked to people connected to the organization there. When I talked to people connected to Cincinnati, they said it seemed like the Bengals weren't as crazy about his work ethic or whatever. So you put on the tape, he just destroys people, like physically mauls people. There's not a lot of offensive linemen in the league, period, that put people on the ground as often as he has in his handful of snaps that he has. Now he has issues in pass protection, so there's some work that's needed here for sure. He's not going to ever be a guy who moves laterally that great. He can get overextended a little bit, but he is able to grab, latch on, and bury people in the run game. That's going to be fun to watch. He could be a 6th offensive lineman option for sure for this team. He's played tackle and guard. He's played right tackle, left tackle, and right guard. So he's played a bunch of different spots. I could see a path where he and Josh Wells honestly both make the team, and maybe Stinney and Hainsey are backups as well, and Leverett's on the practice squad, something like that. There's paths for all of that. I think even Fred Johnson could be on the practice squad too. So there's a lot of different paths forward potentially for this offensive line. But it kind of feels like the offensive line is set to me. Casey, what do you think? And then JC, jump in with your thoughts on the offensive line. Do you think they draft somebody here? Is this group pretty good to go?
I think they're pretty good to go. The only hard part for me is we saw some nice things out of Hainsey in training camp and stuff. So obviously the development's going to continue with him. For some of these other guys, though, it's just kind of looking like maybe one more year. So I would hope that they would maybe go for somebody in the draft. This draft class just isn't super flashy in many ways. So unless you're going to be able to get a guy in the top 3 rounds that you truly think can be groomable in your system, I don't think it's worth it just yet. I think that they have a good group to just kind of rotate out right now. And you have such strong leadership with Jensen coming back, Wirfs developing and stepping up that much more. I mean, he's becoming his own man in this league now. So it's really exciting to see what he'll do in this upcoming season. And I'm hopeful for Hainsey and what he'll possibly start producing. So unless it's a top 3 guy, I don't see someone getting drafted. I just see them going with what they have, finishing out a couple 1-year deals, 2-year deals, and then moving forward and hoping for a better class in the next 2 years here.
Yeah, I think, they're setting themselves up to go BPA at 27. And if Zion Johnson's there, obviously we've spoken enough about him that he would most likely be BPA, but I don't think he'll be there. I don't think going into this draft saying, all right, we have to get a guard prospect or a center prospect or even a tackle prospect for that matter. I don't think that O-line will be something that is like a priority for them. But if guys fall, or if there's guys that are sitting there that they like, I could definitely see them. Dylan Parham, maybe in the 2nd round, or if he falls a little bit, or they make a trade back or whatever, I could see him. Cole Strange, you guys know how I feel about him. potentially at that 3rd round spot. You know, as a developmental guy, I could see it. But there's only one guy, maybe 2 guys, who I think are going to come in and start right away. And you know, I'm not as high in Kenyon Green, especially in this offense as a pass protector, starting right away than I am Zion Johnson. So if you're not going to get Zion, I don't see them being, you know, going after one right away. And I think D-line is probably more of a priority there anyways.
It sure seems like they are based on their free agency signings and where a lot of their visits and scouting trips and formals that have gone. It really seems like they are pretty focused on letting these veterans and these guys who've been in the program compete this year for the offensive line, hoping that they can, whether it's by group approach or one guy takes control of the left guard spot and they have good depth and develop everybody else. Like, I think that's the approach that they want to take with the offensive line, because they have put a lot of time and energy into wide receivers, tight ends. They are 10 running backs or so or more at the combine they looked at. And then on the defensive side of things, I think they will look at some of the safeties, and then obviously the D-line edge group, the combo players, especially, like they're looking at those guys as well. So it feels like the offensive line is one that they've decided to go veterans and players in the league, and let's take that approach, and then we'll come back to it in next year's draft. I like this draft class. There's some good offensive linemen in this class, to be honest. I wouldn't hate it if they surprised us and took one, but I agree that it doesn't seem like it's going that direction right now. Let's get to some of these super chats because we have a lot of them. Leo, we appreciate the $2 super chat. State of the NFC. Don't you mean Bucs versus Rams? Yes, we are going to discuss the state of the NFC. We did not lead you astray with that headline. We wanted to set the table there a little bit with the discussion leading up to. But yes, we will talk about the state of the NFC. Mark asks, Grayson was really coming on at the end of the year. Why do we act as if he's already gone? I don't think we do think or act that way. He is on the roster. He was just not a free agent, so I didn't list him in the signings, re-signings, but he is definitely in play for one of those wide receiver depth spots right now. Seems like the top 3 are set after that. You know, one will be a returner if it's Darden, or a new person maybe. Right now it's Darden. We'll see if a new person comes into the picture. Then Perryman, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Cyril Grayson, they'll all have a chance at a spot like that for sure. Leo says, never able to get your reaction to the latest Brady rumors. Brady to 49ers, Brady to Miami. New England is so desperate for Brady. They hate Tampa. It's sad. It has gotten a little bit sad. Like, for a while, we've kind of all laughed about it a little bit. It's getting borderline absurd now. Like, actual national people have taken some time to just kind of blast these things. It's just kind of ridiculous. But it is weird. We've not seen this with another player that I can ever recall where media has just – I mean, it's been going on basically since he got to Tampa Bay. But it's been like over 2 years now, and we're still trying to like get some. They're still trying to create some sort of report about there being this divisiveness between Brady and the Bucs. But more than anything, now it's just Brady is working on a trade to Miami. That was everywhere, dude. Like, what?
San Francisco, Miami.
JC, you've been up there. Like, you know what these media people are like, man. Like, this is crazy. Like, they can't let this thing go. It's so weird. It's not even a personal thing. They're making it personal. It's bizarre.
Yeah, Boston media, they go a little bit above and beyond. But Brady, you know, it's Tom Brady. He's the greatest there ever was. He's a champion. People hated him when he was in New England. People hate him in Tampa. People are just gonna hate him because how good and how much he wins, and that's just and how long he's done it. People hate that Tom Brady has been kicking their franchise ass for 23 years now, and they're going to come up with some crazy stuff. The fact that national media is picking up some of this stuff is just insane to me. Like, you guys,
gross.
You know better. Like, you know better. Clicks, and views. That's all anyone cares about, and that's why we didn't address it, because we're not going to take those cheap clicks like that. No, thank you.
There's no point in us writing a story on that, Casey. It's just there's no real report to address. If there were, we address them. Even things we disagree with and don't think they're true, we address them and write a story on. But when it's just this stuff, there's just nothing to it at all. It's just people talking to be heard.
It's just it's a very bored off season for a lot of people. I get it, but I mean, go outside, do something else, because
go outside. She said,
please,
get out of your house.
If I hear talking to one other team, like, you guys aren't paying attention. This man is physically picking up his phone, his golden phone, and making personal phone calls, recruiting people to Tampa Bay. That would be the world's sickest joke if he builds a team here, which, I mean, thank you if you do. That's so kind. But to build a team here and then take off is very absurd.
It's
like,
just
go paddleboarding. I highly recommend it. It's good for the core.
Like, if the report was like, oh, maybe he's setting himself up to go to Miami next season. Okay, whatever. He's building a house down there. It's whatever. maybe
He's gonna sign for 2
far-fetchedly.
years.
But like this year, but remember the reports came out too that he was interested in a front office job before the whole Brian
part owner.
Part owner and front office. Like, dude,
he's owned the Dolphins for years. He doesn't need any legal process for that to happen.
Exactly. Unless he played in Miami.
Yeah. Tom Bucs fan says, why was Whitehead not brought back? Still seems weird. Fair to question this and ask why it's weird. I'll just say this, kind of in gleaning and kind of diving into what we've learned. I know there was a whole big thing. The Bucs didn't even offer him a contract. That's true. They felt like he was going to be of more value to other teams. And so no reason to, lead him on that the Bucs were an option. They just felt like he was going to be more valuable to other teams. The other thing is I think they want to play a safety option with Antoine Winfield that will provide him more flexibility. And there just isn't that with Jordan Whitehead. As good as he is at his role, they just would like to get Winfield moved around more. So I think it had more to do with Winfield, less to do with Whitehead. They'd like to have Winfield play close to line of scrimmage, do things like that. They can't really do that if there's a safety like Whitehead who does not have a free safety skill set kind of in his repertoire. That's why, although he rarely came off the field, the fact that the idea that he came off the field is certainly not true. He did not come off the field heavily, but in pass obvious, leading or tied late game situations like in the NFC divisional playoffs, when he came off the field for the final drive, Mike Edwards would come on there because they felt like they were more interchangeable and there could be, more disguise to what they did basically because of that. And so given the fact he was a free agent, if he'd been under contract, I think they would have happily found a way to make it work with 3 safeties again this year. But I think when you bring in a guy like Logan Ryan, they're in their mind, okay, now we can ask him to step into the slot when teams spread us out. He can give us something there. Or we can ask Winfield to step into the slot and he can go back to free safety for a snap. Or we can bring Winfield up and blitz him and Ryan can step back and base defense. And so they're just more versatility in their mind. I have some questions about Ryan. Ryan is that versatile of a dude. I want to see what they do the rest of free agency and the draft. But that's, to me, the thought process behind not bringing him back. It does seem weird because I love what Whitehead is good at, and he was not super expensive to re-sign. But to them, they were like, okay, we're going to go a different route at safety, cheaper route, more versatile route. And instead, we're going to put money into a number 3 wide receiver and into trading for top offensive linemen rather than having holes there. And it's hard to argue with that process. It seems like a pretty good process to me if that's what they decided to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, Light has just hit home runs in the draft with safeties. I mean,
that's a great point. And you have everybody who's basically played safety for Todd Bowles has had a career year. Like, I mean, Rontez Miles, dude, in New York with the Jets was having career. Like, there were guys, even Calvin Pryor had like half a good season under Todd Bowles.
Calvin Pryor, wow, bringing up.
It's just been wild. So Marcus Gilchrist was there for like a year or two, and he was balling.
Yeah, and the thing about this draft too, I mean, we're looking at these prospects, and a lot of them are very flexible. They're good down in the box. They can cover. If you get a guy like Seen from Georgia or Petrie from Baylor, those are 2 guys who can play that enforcer role and bring you what Jordan Whitehead could, but they can also I don't want to call him a liability in coverage because I don't want him tweeting later today.
Well, only if somebody tags this podcast link and then tags you and tells him.
Which now everybody's copying share link.
Look, that man searches his name on Twitter. I already reached out to some of my Jets colleagues. I was like, just be careful. If you criticize him, he's going to find it on Twitter because he searches his name and he's one of them.
See it now. I'm being tagged on Twitter. Jordan Whitehead. JC Allen just called you a liability in coverage.
It's going to happen, probably. Prepare yourself.
Jets need to buy him a journal because you don't want every guy hopping on social media to defend themselves.
Rojo's was the best, though.
But the thing about Whitehead, I'll say, Whitehead actually made great strides. He is a good player, and I don't feel the same way about him. Obviously, we do about Rojo. Yeah, we're big fans of Jordan Whitehead. So tag him and tell him we're big fans of him.
Yeah. I think
he's not a liability.
Bucs are just going to try to pull in as much versatility as possible because I think sometimes there were some major lessons this past season for sure of how it hurts your team if you can't move guys around in desperate situations.
Yeah. I mean, no question about it. Nate asked,
in coverage,
why hasn't Pat O'Connor been re-signed yet? Dude was on a warpath towards the end of the season. For guys like this, especially O'Connor was injured at the end of the year. We don't know how significant or severe. I don't think he needs surgery or anything like that. But for guys like that, it's usually more of there's not a lot of a competing market. And so if there was, then I think you'd see an acceleration for the Bucs to say, hey, like let's make sure we get him back under contract. I think you'll see guys like this return to the roster. It just may take a while. And I think right now the Bucs are in the process of really feeling out that defensive line. How many spots are really going to be available? Because if Sue's back, okay, you've got if McClendon wanted to come back, maybe with McClendon too, they're feeling out like, we don't really have a space for you because we want to draft one guy. Maybe we want to draft two guys. So is O'Connor really going to have a spot? Like, who do they want to be active on game? I think they're just still piecing together that on the defensive line a little bit with what's available, what's out there, and then with the draft too. So I think if there's space, he'll be back eventually. But I don't think there's just any pressure to get it done right now. Now, if he were like, hey, I've got an offer from this place, I'm going to take it if you guys aren't bringing me back, then I think they would say, okay, like let's consider if we need to make that move. But right now it feels like they've probably communicated and it's just kind of like laying low until something else happens, I think.
Plus they have Benning Potawai too, who had a really good training camp last year and is taking steps every year. You called him Potato.
But Potawai, yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, Potato. I don't remember that. But.
Yeah.
No, I remember. I'm just kidding. Vortex asked, John, would you still draft Zion Johnson if he was available at 27? I think I would, just because I think he probably would be my best player available. And I'm usually a pretty big believer in best player available to a degree. I would like to see who else is on the board. If I'm assuming Wyatt's off the board, greater position of value, probably even if I'll have Zion higher than Devontae Wyatt. But yeah, I would probably Zion will be one of just a handful of players that will get a first round grade from me in this class. So if he were there at 27, it'd be hard to believe that he wouldn't be the best player available to me for the Bucs. So I would probably pull that trigger and have, in my opinion, would probably be the best offensive line in the league on paper. That would probably be the direction I would go. But
I see a lot of Jamel Dean slander in the chat. And listen, I get it. You're still having flashbacks of the Giants game in 2020 with him just getting smoked on a double move. But I think he really progressed. Obviously, he was banged up almost every other game, but he really progressed as a corner last year. He was actually one of the top corners in coverage, in the top 10 per PFF in coverage grade. And I think he did really well. He had 2 picks. And again, he was putting his body out there on the line, consistently playing injured almost all year. He did let up half of his targets were caught for receptions, but he did a pretty good job bringing them down and not letting them get extra yards a lot of the time. But I don't know what you guys' thoughts on Jamel Dean, but I think, if he can stay healthy, I can see him having, building upon last year and developing into a really good outside corner for the team. But,
maybe he hit some TB12 this offseason.
Yeah. Based on his play on the field, you got to be optimistic about Dean. Based on the injury stuff, it's annoying. How predictive is it in terms of, was that going to happen every year? I really don't know. I know he went down once, I think, or twice, maybe in 2020 with short stuff, with quick stuff, simple stuff. He has been mostly available. It's just a little bit lost in the midst of a lot of different games with a lot of different things. No, very rarely has there been an extended injury for him. So it's a question mark. He's got to prove he can stay on the field. They won't be interested in re-signing he or Sean Murphy-Bunting. I think if they get banged up for most of this year, but their markets will be pretty low if that happens too. So there's a lot to still consider on that. Matthew with the $5 super chat, heard Gronk's agent on Thursday and doubt he plays. What's our backup plan at tight end? Hitting like for y'all. Great show. We appreciate that, Matthew. And anybody else, hit the like button on the show. We greatly appreciate that. It helps us a lot. Boost our YouTube algorithm right now. So help us out, get the likes up on the show. Give us a thumbs up. That is greatly appreciated by us. Man, I thought Drew Rosenhaus, when he talked on Thursday, seemed pretty much like Gronk hasn't finalized the decision yet. I didn't think there was any reason to doubt that he plays. I think he probably will play. But let's entertain the question just for kicks. Backup plan at tight end. What, Casey, you had? Did you have CJ Uzomah? And now he signed with the Jets, right?
I did. Okay. I took that personal.
Yeah. I took Max Williams personally as well.
Yeah.
He re-signed in Arizona, is that right?
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Wow.
Arizona's looking pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second because we got to talk about the state of the NFC. Backup plan at tight end for you, JC? I don't know. Did you have what was your option?
There's not many available now.
It would be piecing it together if Gronk did come back. You'd just be piecing together veteran. There's no stud out there.
Otten. Give me Trey McBride in the second or Cade Otten in the third. and I'll be happy with that. But I mean, yeah, there's really not much out there unless you want to kick the tires on Jimmy Graham or Eric Ebron.
No.
Maybe look at a Blake Jarwin.
Ebron. Can't imagine a
No.
less Bruce Arians tight end than Eric Ebron.
You know,
That
I mean,
was a big no.
there's really nobody.
Cal Rudolph would be. Has he been signed by anyone?
He retired, I thought. Though.
Did he
Say he was
retire?
retiring? I thought he said he was retiring, but no, he's available. You know,
I would take him over the last few names you just dropped.
Yeah,
I feel bad. I know JC says something, and I'm immediatally like, no.
He'll try to block. He'll try to block at least. You're not getting anything from Jimmy Graham or James
Smith
or Jared
Smith
Cook.
Wouldn't be bad. He's up there in age.
He retired. He did retire. At least.
Okay. I was gonna say he's a good blocker. Tyler Kroft, maybe.
Tyler Kroft could block a little bit. Yeah. I mean, but again, you're talking about piecing it together, right?
Yeah.
Very much.
Really
make
struggling to lock it in there. But
it would be.
I haven't been impressed by a blocking tight end in some time, besides Gronk, obviously.
I mean, it hasn't been. It's funny for an offense that asked for him. They really haven't had many blockers. I've talked about that before. It's kind of this might be the year that they lean into it, maybe. But I do think that they will draft one. By the way, so it would probably be if Gronk didn't come back, it would probably be another veteran, and then they would draft one as well. I feel strongly that they'll draft a tight end at some point. I just don't know when.
5th round.
There's good prospects all the way. I mean, Austin Allen is a guy who we just had in the Pewter Report mock. Obviously, he's got a great last name, but he's also a good player as well. So.
Yeah, we've had him in 2. Did we have him in 2 mock drafts?
I think so. Daniel Bellinger, who I think you had him in your battle plan. He's another good option in the later rounds.
Also, Jeremy Ruckert, Ohio State. That's one. I think they met with him, and he's a very good blocker. So is Cade Otton, Washington. If we had to make a Bucs best bet right now, they've had interviews with him. They've talked to him a good bit. A good quality blocker, gets after people, has an edge to him. Comes from a team where a lot of double teams in that offense. So it'd be very similar in Bucs. He'd be working, hip to hip with somebody. And man, he's a factor in the run game, and he's one of the best pass protecting tight ends I've probably seen in a while. Limited athlete. I don't think he's going to wow anyone. I think his pro day's tomorrow. I don't think he's going to blow anyone away there, but capable hands, and he could, again, we're talking about piecing it together. So he'd fill a role, be a good number 2, can block, catch underneath a little bit. Not going to do anything crazy, I think, but he's another guy that would probably be at the top of the Bucs list.
Had him in my battle plan.
Yeah, that might be one that might be one you hit on, to be honest.
My battle plan blew up, so
yeah,
I'm asking for a redo.
I think most of us are that. All right, let's talk about the state of the NFC a little bit, because it is a wild conference right now in terms of. Oh yeah, there's been some downhill movement for a lot of these teams, so we're going to discuss it all. But first, I got to mention our friends over at Pin Chasers. This is where you can take your family for some bowling, food, and fun this week. Free agency slowed down. The draft's a couple weeks away still. Get out with the family, get away from Twitter, get away from the headlines, even get away from Pewter for a second and just have some fun, some bowling, great food. You can eat pizza night. They serve breakfast food all day. You can have birthday parties here, team building events for your company. Fundraisers is a great place to have some fundraisers as well. Get involved in bowling leagues at Pin Chasers. 3 different locations, East Pasco, Midtown, and Veterans. You can check those out. Great place to go. I think I was there a couple weeks ago, and there were people it was crazy. It was like a Friday night, and it was packed, and people were just having a great time. It's a hopping place for real, and their food excellent as well. So make sure you check out Pin Chasers. Take the family out there, have some fun. This week, great place to.
You had me at all you can eat pizza.
I know.
All day.
I know, dude. I know.
Get a couple pies.
I love bowling. It's a lot of fun.
Bowling is fun. I posed the question when I was there, and I actually made a poll and put it on Twitter. Is it cool to be good at bowling? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. So
yeah.
I grew up. You guys know I'm from New England, so we have candlepin bowling up there. There's only a handful of big ball bowling that you guys are accustomed to, and they're small balls like this big, really, and they're straight and narrow candlepin type. And I do glow bowling. So down here, when I actually went there as well, the one in Zephyr Hills, the big ball. Oh man, I crush it at that. I suck at candlepin. Big ball bowling, I crush it. I'm like, where's this been all my life?
Yeah, I don't even know. I've just gone regular bowling. I don't even know what those things are that you're
never
talking
heard
about.
of it.
Yeah, that's.
We used to go bowling every Sunday on the Air Force Base. So yeah, big bowlers over here.
There you go. Yeah. I guess it's cool. It's cool to be good at bowling. No question about it.
But with the candle pin. Anybody know about
family
the candle
ties
pin?
have been cut over bowling competitions. I mean, it's gotten severe. So, yeah.
We might need to launch a separate podcast here about Casey's bowling story.
About all of Casey's competitive stories. It's like I come up so aggressive. I'm really so nice, y'all. Like so nice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Your most aggressive moments come on the pod for sure. Speaking of that, a chance for all of us to be aggressive here as we talk about the rest of the NFC, because some of these teams have been tripping this offseason. The Dallas Cowboys are one of them. No Amari Cooper. He's out of the fold now. They've re-signed Michael Gallup, but there's no guarantee he'll be ready right now for the beginning of the season. His injury was a more severe one than Chris Godwin's, and his recovery might be as well. So something to monitor there. They lost out on Cedric Wilson, and they were hoping that he would be the guy that would step in. It would be kind of a combination of Gallup and Wilson replacing Amari Cooper. They signed James Washington from Pittsburgh, who I think is a downgrade from Wilson, who was the wide receiver 4 last year in Dallas. So it is a worse receiving core. Blake Jarwin is looking like he's going to move on. I know that he was been injured for a lot of his time in Dallas. That was a rough contract for them. Dalton Schultz is back on the tag. I don't really see him as a difference maker. I think he was the beneficiary of their scheme and the other talent around him. You got CeeDee Lamb in the slot. You got Gallup when he's ready outside. You got James Washington outside. That you draft a wide receiver, but this is not the same group of weapons. They lost Connor Williams at left guard, who was not really good anyway. So his replacement hopefully will be an upgrade addition by subtraction situation. And then La'el Collins was lost as well, the right tackle. So offense has taken huge hits. They already had question marks at center. Now they have question marks at 3 offensive line spots, obviously Zach Martin. And then even at left tackle, Tyron Smith has been not fully healthy for the last couple of years. He's getting older. He's still good, but you wonder if at any point the health gives out, and then you have a lot of questions in that unit. Dak is a good quarterback, but he has really struggled when he has not been protected in his career. And now it is a little bit of a sketchy situation in front of them, and at the skill positions, they feel like they've taken a step back. They lost out on Randy Gregory, then couldn't bring in Von Miller and some of the other options that they were looking at, Zadarius Smith in free agency. So they are kind of riding with Dorrance Armstrong and DeMarcus Lawrence, who they did keep around because he volunteered to stay for cheap. Only to see them lose all these other guys. I don't know what he's thinking, but
this is number 2 running back more than they're paying their number 1 running back.
The Ezekiel Elliott deal is hurting these fellas because they have just refused to invest in other spots.
In Cabo shirtless.
I mean, he's their second best running back, and he's making a ton of money. So it feels like this group and this team has taken a step back, and really, I don't think anybody in the NFC East has really stepped up. The Eagles might be a little bit better, but there's still quarterback question marks there. Washington, I don't know. Casey, what are your thoughts on the NFC East in general? It feels like this whole division is, I don't know if I see a true contender out of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one, I would definitely say the Eagles they had some pretty solid games this past season. I like the addition of Pascal. Am I saying his name correctly? Added to their roster.
Zach Pascal. Yeah.
I like the idea of him being there. I think that something progressive will come from that, to be honest. It just depends on how they manage Hurts in the offseason and kind of really start formulating a team around him rather than him being thrusted into what was. So I think the Eagles can end up coming out on top there. But other than that, I mean, that whole division needs a lot of restructuring and reality. I mean, I don't even know what direction the Cowboys are going in these days. And this isn't the first season. It's been a lost cause for about 2 seasons now.
It's funny because they had so much talent last year. It felt like it might be their year, and then it just imploded in the playoffs on them like it always seems to. Yeah. And it is hard to trust them, and now they have less talent than they did before. We'll see if the draft changes that or late free agent signings change that. But the East right now, JC, I don't know, looking at that, it seems like things are down. Same thing, really, if you look at the North. I mean, the North, Green Bay is obviously going to be the best team there right now, but the loss of Devontae Adams is huge. They are just by default, right? I mean, Chicago's not right. They've literally done nothing around Justin Fields. Like, it's a mess.
I'm looking at
Detroit, Minnesota
possibly. You know, it depends on what they do, right? Because even if they go out, let's say they go draft 2 rookie wide receivers, you know, in the first and second rounds, like how quickly are they going to get up to speed?
The Packers you're talking about.
They have defensive issues. You know, they lost edge rushers. They have offensive line issues. They just have a bunch of issues on that team that you're not going to be able to solve everything in the draft. And you just traded Devontae Adams. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, is this your window or
does
not?
seem like he wanted
You're
to
about
be
to pay
there.
$10 million to Valdez. I don't know how to say his name. You got Al Lazard and what's old man
Randall
Cobb
Cobb.
up there.
Yeah.
And okay, cool. So you draft a wide receiver. You're drafting it late in the first round, so you're not getting a
you're not getting one of the top guys in this class.
Yeah, probably. Exactly. So like I just
a lot of these teams, it's like a lack of leadership. I mean, you want a headline to talk about. I mean, there's so much tension or not much cohesion when it comes from the staff, the front office, to the leaders on the team, from the Cowboys to the Packers. They're going to be trying to refigure their teams for a minute. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings end up topping the NFC North.
Yeah, I mean, it would surprise me, but because they do have so many holes of their own, especially in the secondary, like there's a lot of question marks they have just in general. But the signing of Zadarius Smith is a really good one for them. They were a different defense when they were able to have those two guys, him and Danielle Hunter, if he can finally be healthy, off the edge, rushing together for full season. That could be big for them. They've got a long way to go on the D-line, long way to go on in the secondary, especially a corner. A lot of mistakes have been made there. And so there's still a ton of question marks. The offensive line is okay. And obviously you get Dalvin Cook and Jefferson back. You've got a chance, Thielen as well. But it feels like it would need to be like basically a coaching thing where like they got an edge from their coaching that we weren't anticipating with the new hiring and everything. And they could, I mean, I'm not ruling it out. Obviously, it just seems like a lot of those guys
early in the draft. You know, they grab a good corner. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys coming from Sean McVay's system have had success right away, so that could certainly happen with them in Minnesota. So we'll see, but it's hard to make an argument that like they've gotten noticeably better this offseason for sure. The Packers, I think everyone would agree.
Worse.
Yeah, noticeably worse for the Packers. Like, there's no question. Devontae Adams is probably he and Tyreek Hill probably as instrumental to a team's passing attack as any receiver could be, based on alignment and manufactured touches and the way that they manipulated coverages with them. Like everything, it's an incredible loss, no matter how good your quarterback is. So we'll see how those situations play out. But then you look at the West, and this is still a division that's going to be good, but clearly not as good, right? I mean, Seattle obviously is not a factor this season. It would be hard pressed to see anything they could do at this point that would make them a factor this season. They're not going to be in the picture. I want to hear everybody's thoughts on Arizona, obviously, because they're a team that's like, oh, they didn't get worse, really. Like, but do we believe in them? Do we not? Do we think this whole thing's going to fall apart in the next year? They could be on top of the division or totally whole thing falls apart, feel like in Arizona. And then obviously San Francisco is still a very good roster. There's no real negative there, but you're going to be starting almost certainly a rookie, or not a rookie, but a first-year starter at quarterback who is probably one of the least experienced starting quarterbacks in NFL history based on how little he's actually played the position. There's going to be there has to be some room for a lot of error with him as he grows into the position, I feel like. And obviously the Rams, who I think are still probably going to be considered the favorites by most, but it's going to be close. There's a loss of Von Miller is big there. So Casey, thoughts on the West, and then JC jump in with your thoughts as well. Taking
the Cardinals. I say the Cardinals. Yeah, because I actually had them, doing a lot better at the end of their season. I just think that they have some really, I don't want to say easy mistakes to learn from, but I think they have some, not so monumental mistakes to learn from where they can come in and be way more competitive this season. They've kept great guys. I think that they might even get some decent pickups in the draft and move from there. So I'm going to take the Cardinals to really take it this year, because we don't know what the Rams are going to look like in the next couple of weeks either. And defensively, if a team can match them, then that's where you really kind of bail out and have an opportunity to top the Rams. So I don't know. I believe in the Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals.
Chandler Jones leaving was a hit, but
it is a hit. And I think that Cardinals defense.
But they went almost all season without JJ Watt. And I'm not really putting a team on his back, but the Texans got to a lot of situations that they did because they had this inferior guy named JJ Watt. And I know that his health is so questionable, but if he stays healthy, he is a big piece of any team.
That's true.
So I just look at the Arizona, and Kyler Murray is the first thing that pops in my head, right? Obviously, this whole social media background, his agent putting out this long letter about, commitment and this and that. How does that play out during the season? I know things happen in the offseason, and then once the season starts, all systems are going. But, I mean, even their offense and their defense, still, I think there's holes. I'm very excited to see Rondell Moore's progression. But can DeAndre Hopkins stay healthy? He's been struggled out the past few years. You don't really have a good third receiver right now. Andy Isabella in an air raid attack. You're going to have to address that. Offensive line is all right. They signed your guy, Will Hernandez, recently. But the defense still, I mean, there's players there. Zaven Collins, Simmons, obviously Budda Baker, and JJ Watt, even though he's had some trouble staying healthy. I don't know if there's enough there to be able to slow down a team like the Rams. And I look at the Rams, and they've lost some players. They brought some players in. But you know how they do. They're going to either make some trades or convince some guys to come in there. Big losses, though. I mean, yeah, sure. You brought in Allen Robinson and you with Robert Woods, but me, it's more like, okay, Von Miller, how do you replace him? How do you replace a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day? How do you replace your starting right guard? How do you replace your
Corbett? And
obviously
Whitworth as well.
And Whitworth as well. So they've got some holes too. So, I mean, if you look at the state of the NFC right now as a whole, I don't think anyone has a more complete roster than what the Bucs have right now. So I really just looking at that. And Seattle, Seattle's the bottom of the barrel. Drew Lock, good luck. Sorry, Noah Fant. San Francisco is the same too. Okay, so does this prompt San Francisco to say, crap, we can't trade Jimmy G because we're right in the middle of this, and we should, with the team we have, we should be able to go at least make a playoffs. Do we put it all on Trey Lance now, or do we ride? We haven't freed up this $25 million yet in cap space, so it hurt our ability to sign some players and go out there. Do we roll with Jimmy G for the final year of his deal and compete? Because if they do, now I think they're in the mix for that, not just the NFC West, but obviously in the playoff mix as well, and look like one of the 4 top teams in the NFC.
It's hard to predict what the 49ers will be. They're clearly the wild card. I mean, Jimmy G was not very good for a lot of last year, and they won anyway. I mean, they didn't win that. The regular season was very kind of average, but they get in the playoffs, and their defense did their thing, and Debo Samuel put the team on his back with Yak and running the ball, and the rest of the team is good, and so Lance could step right in and kind of
they lost a lot of good players too.
I mean, Jimmy G made mistakes, so maybe we shouldn't be that low on Lance, but it's rarely is that a 1-for-1 thing where a quarterback isn't great and his team makes the NFC Championship and then they're able to repeat the process the next year. Now, 49ers did it twice, but Jimmy was good the first time they made it. Like he had a good year. He is just not the same dude these days. Like the injuries have taken a toll. That's part of it, but also like teams have figured out so much more how to take care of him because and expose his weaknesses and his limitations. Yeah. And I don't think that you can just plug Trey Lance in and be like, oh, he's not going to be worse than Jimmy G, so we'll go back to the NFC Championship game. It is rarely that linear in the NFL where like the thinking can be that linear from one year to the next. It rarely happens that way. So there will be some ups and downs for them, and then it'll be where they're at the end of the year. Obviously, it'll be fascinating to watch San Francisco to see how quickly Trey Lance is able to acclimate into the situation. But it is right, JC. It is hard to look at what the Rams lost, even if Joe Noteboom steps in and is good. Even if did they sign anybody or kind of pseudo replace Von Miller? I don't know that they did. They lost Okoronkwo too, who was their number 3 guy. So they've got to make some moves, defensive line for sure. They've got to make some improvements there. No question about that. They're kind of looking at the Bobby Wagner situation. They bring in an Allen Robinson, which gets people excited, but then they lose a Robert Woods. I know Woods is injured, fully healthy. I think Woods is better than Robinson right now at this point in their careers. Now, fully healthy may be a legit question mark with him. But, I mean, Allen Robinson's coming off a really rough year. I like Allen Robinson fine. I think he'll do well in that offense. OBJ's situation, obviously being injured, and even if he does re-sign with the Rams, when's he going to be available? End of November? And even if he is, how fast does he get back to speed on the football field if he's coming in for the playoffs or something like that? Probably unrealistic to think he stepped into a major role right away.
All these teams took big hits. Like every team took big hits. Like besides the Bucs did too. I'm not gonna say they didn't, but your biggest hit was probably Alex Kaplan. You filled that with an upgrade. Your second biggest hit was Jordan
Your
Whitehead.
biggest hit was Marpet, obviously. But,
yeah. That's true. Yeah,
but that's it, though. I mean, if you feel like
control that, I mean, it's not like he signed somewhere else. I mean, that was
right. You can't control it, but if you're just looking at negatives, like that's
you're right.
Like that's been the big one for the Bucs, really. And other than that, I feel like they got better at some spots. They gave themselves more options at spots. Got better, considering that AB really wasn't playing last year hardly at all. They got better at wide receiver with bringing in Russell Gage. They still have the draft to work with. It's not a perfect roster by any stretch of the imagination, and you do have to wonder about some of these guys getting older, what the health situation is going to be like. If you bring back Sue or Gronk or Golston, even who's been healthy most of his career, the free agent signings they brought in, those guys have all pretty much been healthy their entire careers. The Bucs bring in people typically with really clean bills of health, but you wonder with guys like Logan Ryan and they're getting older. Okay, if some of these guys start getting injured more frequently, then what are we going to be up against? Because the team's depth is not the same as it was 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl, in my opinion. So, but they still have time to fill those roles too. This thing isn't over, and they will. The Bucs have remained active pretty much every step of the way in their free agency. So yeah, tough. I mean, right now, if you're honestly asking me, I think the Bucs are the best team in the NFC. Like that's really genuinely how I feel. Just being honest, I think the Rams' losses are going to hurt them right now.
Look, we touched on all the other divisions, but we got to talk about it. We can't just leave the elephant out of the room. We got to talk about the Saints too, right?
There's rounding people up in the chat. I wanted to just leave it.
we got to talk about the Saints, right? People are going off on the Saints.
Saints are a factor. They'll still be good, but there's some big losses, man. Marcus Williams is a big loss, and I know people are, Marcus May, they just plug holes. No. We'll see. I mean, Marcus Williams played a unique role. That guy was single eye all the time. May has moved around in his career. He's been a good player, but he's coming off an Achilles. It's just, I don't know that it's necessarily the same exact thing. PJ Williams still out there. We'll see what happens. There's still a good defense. There's no question about it.
Huge too.
Armstead, know what Winston's going to look like, on the return of his injury, and
exactly.
They really just use Taysom Hill as one significant thing, one significant role. So I think the thing is that the Bucs have less question marks than other teams in the NFC right now. You know,
because their team has been together. They know their team, and the Saints. Look, Kamara could get suspended. Michael Thomas, he's missed like 2 years of football, basically. I mean, what the heck is he going to look like? Like Jameis is coming off a major injury. Like Marcus May is coming off a major injury. It's just hard to totally determine what they're going to look like. You have some guys that are getting straight up just getting old for their positions, like Demario Davis and Malcolm Jenkins and Cam Jordan. Like there are not a lot of players playing at an elite level at their ages at those positions. And so
Cam Jordan kind of looked a little declined in some games this past season.
Yeah, I mean, he found the renaissance against the Bucs for sure.
Of course.
He played awesome against. Before that, the 2 years before that, I thought he gave Chris the worst.
Yeah.
He really found it against Tampa. I don't know if he was reading all the Bucs fans' tweets or whatever. but yeah, it'll be interesting. The South is not going to be as easy as people think, I think, because the Saints will still be a factor. But I do think I'm just very curious to see how the rest of the offseason plays out for the Bucs, what this team looks like when training camp rolls around, because they have an opportunity, in my opinion, to add to this team in the draft in ways that those guys will actually contribute. Where last year the draft was going to be kind of a cherry on top because there wasn't really anywhere for guys to play for the most part. This year it's going to be different, and what they do and what kind of pieces they add could ultimately play a role in their success this year. So, and
I don't think they're going to be a challenge for the Bucs, in the NFC South, but I got Carolina as a wild card that could maybe sneak in one of those wild card spots, depending on what they do at the quarterback position. Because looking at obviously
this is your wildest take.
Looking at their offense and what they've kind of put together on there, and their defense is pretty solid. They can continue to add to that.
The Carolina Panthers
as a seventh, with a healthy Christian McCaffrey and some, depending on what they do at quarterback, they take Malik Willis, maybe, I don't know.
Seventh rookie. A guy completed like 50% of his passes.
The seventh wild card spot in this.
McCaffrey is a tall ask right now. Like,
put 16 teams on a dartboard and just throw that dart, and that's who could be that seventh wild card. There's so much parity in the NFC. I would not.
I mean, you're right. I'm just saying, like, making an actual case for the Panthers is not something. And you're right that any crazy things could happen. But making a case for the Panthers is not. That's a bold one. That's one of your bolder takes, dude. Like,
Listen,
it is.
No,
Because what's
no,
going to happen?
no,
to
no.
They opened up an extra. If San Fran does want to move Jimmy Garoppolo, Carolina is one of the only teams that have enough space for him. And if Jimmy G goes to the Panthers with that roster, I think that they can make a little bit of noise. But that's like the
Jimmy
only.
G
That's
away
what.
from Kyle Shanahan though.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
with a coaching staff that's about to get fired.
Well, he's only got a 1-year deal, so who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. Like if
the chat agrees, there's some people in the chat that agree. I agree, JC. Panthers are better than the Falcons. That's a pretty low bar, I guess. But that might be true.
I'm like, it's not the biggest trade off. Mariota did what?
No, Charlie's against you. He says, I'm ready to end the podcast if JC keeps talking weird.
Listen, I don't think they're a threat at all. I just think that if you're looking at the NFC as a total right now, I think that if they have some bold move I think if they get a quarterback, I think they could be in the mix. I don't think their defense is that bad. I think you saw them in the beginning of the year. They were definitely overachieving for what they were. And they have the skill positions and the skill players. They signed your boy Bradley Bozeman to a cheap deal. I wish the Bucs.
It's not my boy. That's Scott's boy.
Left guard. Now he's Scott's boy.
I always thought it could happen. I always thought there was a chance that it could happen.
But
did I want it to happen? That's a different question. That's a different story. Scott was the guy that I've seen enough Bradley Bozeman tape that, for their options, it would have been okay, but he's not going to save the Panthers.
No one's going to save it.
I'll be shocked if they're not one of the worst teams in the league.
I kind of think they need more than just a quarterback, JC.
They need an O-line. They need another edge guy. They need corners. They got
They need a team.
All right.
Dante Jackson and Rashad Melvin. What are you talking about?
They need a whole team.
I'll stop.
They had half the corners in the league on their roster last year. They couldn't get good play. It was wild. All right, we'll wrap it up there. We appreciate everybody. Oh, Matt, one more super chat from Matt. Is Hainsey at least a solid backup, or did Jason have a rare or total screw up on our draft? Maybe JTS keeps getting better. I don't know why people are just out on Hainsey. Like, what opportunity does this man have to play? The offensive line, the interior line. Marpet missed one game last year. That was it. Like, just wait. Let's just find out. Like, he's not a screw up
Training
yet.
camp looked pretty decent, but
I hate the 2021 draft. There's nothing you can do to change their mind.
Funny. They didn't have opportunities to play because this is one of the best rosters in the league. Like, I just want everybody to just wait. Like, after camp this year, if they suck, we can start talking about it. But let's just wait and see what happens.
Giving out draft grades right after the draft. Yeah.
Regroup in July.
We do appreciate those super chats. Are great. We appreciate them rolling in. By the way, Jason speaks to the Bucs media in about 23 minutes. So stay tuned. We'll have content up at pewterreport.com. We'll be live tweeting. Scott and Matt will be live tweeting. You might get some video. You'll get some quotes coming out from Jason tonight. So make sure you check those out here coming up soon. For everybody, make sure you hit the like before you leave. We appreciate that.
Oh, quick shout out to Sam from Fresh Kitchen. He's a huge Pewter fan. Ran into him and he said how much he loves you guys. So I'm going to let him know. So Sam, shout out, guy.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a fan.
Thank you, Sam. We appreciate it always. I love hearing those stories. I love hearing that stuff. We appreciate everybody. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, I believe Scott and Matt are going to have the pod tomorrow, and they're going to break down everything they learned and heard and all the rumors. He's loving it. He's working all his connections and everything. He's going to break it all down tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern on the podcast for y'all. So tune in then. Make sure you do, because there will be nuggets. Scott always drops them in the pod, not on Twitter. He drops them on the pod. So tune in tomorrow. There will be some nuggets, I'm sure.
Finally back out in the field.
Back out in the wild. Yes. Exactly. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, jumping in here. Thanks so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.